Hello and welcome to Love from the Other Side. If you are on this video, perhaps you too are in need of hope. We bring you stories from around the world of people who have shared their near-death experiences. Our experience today comes to us from a gentleman who coded under a tree in his front yard. This happened on August 30th, 2017. Here's his experience.
I was having a severe hypoglycemic episode. My wife called the paramedics to our home. I then had an instant cardiac arrest where my heart stopped beating. When they realized what had happened, they started CPR using these shock pads 3 separate times. Ambulatory record showed that it took 8 minutes before my heart began beating again, but it couldn't beat on its own. 18 minutes later, my heart was beating on its own again. This is the story of what happened when I was clinically dead. The last thing I remember was going to sleep before the low blood sugar event occurred. The next thing I knew, I was standing at the foyer doorway, looking towards my front door. I noticed that the walls in my foyer appeared to be made of wooden gold. I'm a carpenter by trade, and as I looked at the wall, I thought, when in the hell did we do this? I did not understand what was happening. I may have been walking towards the front door, but I honestly believed that I was floating across the floor. The light shining through the window was unbelievably bright, and the door opened up by itself. As I came out onto the porch, the blue sky was incredible. The light shining down, which I thought was the sun, was unlike any light I have ever seen. I then looked at the tree, which was about 20 feet away. I felt it smiling at me. It was moving its branches slowly. It appeared to be dancing. On the branches were the most amazing red and golden leaves twisting slowly. I could hear, inside my spirit, the leaves laughing and playing like kids on a playground. I looked to my left at the end of the porch and saw my father, mom, and my brother looking up towards the light. Everyone I saw is still alive. I then looked down and saw my 15-year-old stepson and 12-year-old stepdaughter sitting on the porch step. They were also looking upwards toward the light. Then I saw my wife on her knees, crying into my waist with her arms wrapped around me. I looked in front of me and saw my 8-year-old stepson standing arm's length away to my right and my 6-year-old son to my left. They were looking at me. A voice spoke and said, "Hey there, John boy." When I looked up in the direction of the tree, I saw a man floating, encircled by a cloud. The amazing sunlight that I'd been seeing was actually the light coming from him. The light felt indescribable. I saw that it was shining completely through the tree, yet the tree still looked solid like normal. Words can't express how it made me feel. As soon as I saw him, I realized that I was dead. At that point, my life started flashing through my mind. It sounded like flapping pages through a book. When it finished, I looked up weeping and said, "Everything that I've done, everything that I didn't do." The man who I know as Jesus said, "What are you talking about? That doesn't exist here." When he said that, the tears on my face disappeared, like they had never been there to begin with. I felt his mercy take away my burdens, the guilt and shame of all I had done in my life. I stood back up, and he said, "You're free to come with me if you want." My 8-year-old stepson, Chris, said, "You're supposed to show us how to build a treehouse." Then Jesus said, "And leave your responsibilities behind." My 6-year-old son, Riley, then said, "Daddy, you promised," and held out his hand. At that point, I forgot about all else happening. I just thought about my responsibilities and grabbed his hand. The next thing I remember was coming off of life support, 10 days later, unable to talk, walk, or move any of my limbs. The doctor told my family that it may be permanent due to the amount of time I went without oxygen. 2 days later, I was talking and learning to walk again using a walker. 3 days later, I was home after being discharged from ICU. I have shared this with others, but have found that few believe what happened. Many of them think I'm crazy. I have stopped sharing it unless there's an overwhelming push inside my spirit to share it with a specific person. There are several pieces that have been left out due to my inability to put into words or describe it without making the story much longer.
If you would like to read this experience in more detail, I will put a link in the description section of this video. As always, thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today, And if you haven't done so yet, we would love for you to be the newest subscriber to Love from the Other Side. Until next time, God bless.